Hello, everyone. Welcome to Finding the Voices. I hope you're having a great Sunday. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, good evening, wherever you're watching from. So, right now, we are having the People of the World series. And, when I grew up as a child, I had a camp actually when I was in 10th grade. And during that camp, one of the brother, I still remember his name, Brother Francis, spoke about abortion, about teen pregnancy, and asked us a question. What do you think about abortion? What do you think about abortion if a girl has been raped? And we were very young, right? 10th grade, and we were talking about, if it is a rape case, why would you want the child? And so the child has to be aborted. And Father Francis, after hearing all our thoughts, saw us a video about how abortion is done, what is abortion, and that created a big impact in my thought. And so as I'm working as I'm outreaching to many of my viewers, as I am hosting workshop for personality development, I wanted to have that opportunity to talk about this topic, because when you enhance your knowledge on what is happening, you are equipped to make a better choice. So today we have a very special guest speaker, Rebecca Kiessling. I'm so excited, to have her in our show because she has a great story which she carries. And let me read this from her website: conceived in rape, targeted for abortion, protected by law. So that really touched me. It's her true story. And let's take the opportunity to bring her up in our show. Hey, Rebecca, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the very nice introduction.
Yeah, I have been waiting for this. And, I was so excited when you responded and said, yes, let's talk about it, right?
I looked at the topic of your show and I thought, oh, does she know my whole story?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, what your views are or anything like that, because there are a lot of people who interview me, not because they want me to talk specifically about abortion.
Yeah.
They just think that it's an interesting story because I'm someone who was conceived in rape.
Yeah.
And they think that that's sort of an interesting person story. How do you cope with that? How do you process it? I have a global organization of over 1,000 who were conceived in rape and mothers from rape.
Wow.
So it's, I have this unique network. And so I didn't know what your background was. I couldn't tell by looking at your Facebook page,
Yeah. So my intent for our show is, many of our listeners are young people, and I really want them to expand their mind and know about different things, right? Because when you're young, you don't know.
Yeah.
And so that's why I am here to have a deeper conversation. And I think it would be very helpful, to share your own story. And I know I have read it, but if you can, start our show by talking about yourself, your background, and then we can, go into a little bit of the detail.
So my story is that I was adopted, and some people just think like, oh, if you're against abortion, then you're a Christian, I guess. That it's only for people who are Catholic or Christian. And I was actually adopted and raised in a Jewish family, but they lived as atheists, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
From my grandparents spoke Yiddish in their home. They were from the south of Poland, north of Austria, and all of their family was wiped out in the Holocaust.
Oh.
So I grew up learning from a very young age that there is such hatred which exists in the world, that there are people who would kill innocent others
Yeah.
for no offense of theirs, for nothing that they did wrong.
Yep.
And I always wanted to speak out against any of these atrocities where innocent people would be killed. Uh, I don't know how many of your viewers would have seen the movie Forrest Gump. I think it was pretty popular globally.
Yeah.
But in the movie, there's a feather that's floating, and it's very symbolic of his life, where the winds just come and blow this feather around. And that was kind of like how his life was. And I really felt like that feather, that I didn't have roots to
Mm.
sink into this world. I was sent to religious education called Hebrew school. We studied Hebrew and we learned about, um, Moses and the whole
Mm.
history of the Jews. And my classmates would tell me that I wasn't really one of them. I was
Mm.
called a bastard.
Oh, so when did you, so just to trace back, when did you come to know you were adopted? You knew it from
Very,
right on? Okay.
very young, yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't really understand that I had a birth mother. I
Mm.
thought that I was adopted instead of being born.
Mm.
There was like a room full of babies
Right.
and they picked me up. I thought maybe like kind of like the idea of the stork, they called up God and placed an order for me and then they picked me up.
Yeah.
I at a really young age, I didn't understand the concept of a birth mother. But then at some point, of course, I realized that there's this woman out there
Yeah.
who had me and I really wanted to meet her. And I thought that I would find my people because, as I said, my classmates at Hebrew school told me that I wasn't really one of them. I knew that this was not my family tree.
Mm.
And even though I empathized with all of my family's Jewish ancestors who were killed, I understood that these were not my people. And I thought that by finding my birth mother, I would find who my people were and I would find my identity, value, purpose, where I fit into this world, like the big picture questions of who am I? Why am I here? And I thought I would be grounded. I would then have roots
Right.
into that family tree and that would help me to be grounded. And instead, I learned something that is not something that helps you to feel grounded.
Yeah.
Um,
How
I
old were
learned
you then?
I was 18 when I learned
Okay.
how I was conceived.
Okay.
And I was 19 when I met my birth mother and heard the horrible details.
Mm.
She was actually 30 years old when she was abducted at knife point by a serial rapist. And she said she had been raped by her grandfather growing up. And when this man told her, if you're quiet, you won't get hurt, she just thought to herself, I've been through this before.
Mm.
I'm just going to get this over with.
Mm-hmm.
She was worried about her two children who were home alone at the time. She was just going to the grocery store, walking to the
Mm-hmm.
grocery store right down the street from her home. And they were 10 and 12 years old. So she didn't know if this person knew where she lived and if this person was going to go home and attack them. So it was brutal. She never saw his face. And she told me what it was like when she went home, what she did to cleanse herself, how she burned her clothes in a ditch,
Mm.
and how sort of what the aftermath was like, because she described for me in graphic detail
Mm-hmm.
the rape, and it was horrible. And he really hurt her physically for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then she went to several police lineups and she stopped going because she would not recognize his face. But they told her that this was a serial rapist. And then the police referred her, or a counselor referred her for an abortion. And
Mm.
she went to two illegal abortions. And I was almost killed, but she backed out because of fear for her own safety. And the fact that it was illegal, worried if anything happened to her, what would become of her two children.
Mm-hmm.
And when we met, even though she was so happy to meet me and sent me a beautiful letter,
Yeah, I read that letter
yeah,
in your
isn't it
website.
touching?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I asked her about abortion, and she told me it should have been my right. She said,
Mm,
even if she had to do it all over again, and she said, you don't know what it was like.
mm.
And I was devastated.
Oh my
I
God.
I knew what society said about children conceived in rape, but I didn't think my birth mother would say that. I
Yeah.
wanted to hear that abortion wasn't an issue because, again, I thought that would bring me grounding, that if I knew that my mother wanted me, then I
Mm,
could feel valuable, that I could feel good about myself if she wanted me.
mm.
Um, and she didn't. You know,
Yeah.
she wanted to kill me. And even though she wanted to meet me now, despite the horror of her saying that, I still chose to nurture a relationship with her and to honor her for the role that she did play in my life,
Hmm.
even though it was very, very painful.
Yeah, because you are 19 and you just, found your birth mother and you thought, you would find some grounding and some
Yeah.
peace and reconciliation of your identity. But here you are again, like your mom is still standing by the fact that, yeah, I should have the right.
Yeah. And I really felt worthless. Like I really didn't know my own worth.
Mm,
And I wanted to prove my worth. I always excelled in academics and athletics, even though I was raised in an abusive household. Um, I was a people pleaser. I did very well in school. I was, you know, really smart as a kid,
yeah.
and I was driven. So I did very well in sports and in academics. And I wanted to be an attorney since I was 10 years old. I remember in high school people saying, "Oh, you want to be a female attorney? Oh, like a feminist." And I asked people, well, what's a feminist?
Yeah.
And they said, well, it's somebody who stands up for women's rights. They want to help make women stronger. And I thought, well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like a feminist,
Yeah.
because I'm pro woman and I like being a strong woman. I always worked out, lifted weights, and sure, like a feminist. And then I started to hear that feminists allegedly support abortion,
Ah,
and I remember thinking, what does killing babies have to do with being a strong woman?
yeah.
Like, how are you making women stronger by saying, well, they have to be afraid of a baby?
Mm,
Like, and why would anybody be afraid of a baby? I mean, give her help, give her real help, help equip her, help her to take care of herself and her baby. But
yeah.
to say that, well, you can understand why a woman can't handle that. Anytime you tell a woman, like, and you say, oh, they can't handle that, that's like not making women stronger.
Hmm.
And then also, my grandfather had wanted my aunt to be killed. My grandmother began sharing that story. And it
Mm,
was my atheist Jewish grandmother who taught me her pro life values. So for
mm,
me, it had nothing to do with, the Bible or God or anything like that. It was just, I had to face the issue because my aunt would have been killed.
mm.
And then my aunt's daughter aborted my grandmother's first great grandchild when when my cousin was 16 years old, and it devastated my grandmother. She felt completely betrayed because she had spared the life of my cousin's mother,
Mm,
and then my cousin betrayed her by aborting the first great grandchild. So this was all really practical. This was not like a theoretical concept for me,
mhm.
but I had names, faces, to
Yeah,
this issue.
yeah.
And but ultimately, I ended up finding my value and identity in Christ. Like I know today that I'm not the child of a rapist, but I'm the child of a rape victim, and I'm a child of God. I know that the rapist did not create me. He's not my creator, like some people would have me believe.
Mm-hmm.
I am not made in the image of the rapist. I am made in the image of God. He created me for a purpose. I believe I have a worldview that understands that good can overcome evil, and that what man intended for evil, God can use it for good. It's not that he intends evil, he gives people free will. Um, I tell people you can be pro law enforcement and not pro crime, even
Mm-hmm.
though it's true that without crime there'd be no law enforcement. Because
Mm-hmm.
people accuse me of being pro rape because I have the
Mm.
audacity to value my life, because I'm not suicidal. I mean,
Mm.
I've literally had people come on my Facebook page and tell me that if you had any compassion for your mother, you would have killed yourself a long time ago.
Wow. Yeah,
People
but look
call
at
me,
you. I am so proud of you. I was looking through all the pictures, all the platform where you have gone and spoken. I love the one where you spoke, I don't remember, but about one Bollywood star, and how you spoke about how as a woman, like, you can say that you're achieving when you have bones in the closet. I'm not quoting, you know, per
yeah,
se, but I think you got the gist of what I
yeah.
understood.
And I get called things like demon seed, evil seed, rapist, a Satan spawn,
Mm,
devil's child, and then they call me devil's child. I'll show people, like, look, there's no horns. You
mm,
know, I try to use some humor because it's pain. Like, the things they say are horrifying. They really are. And so I just try to show people the absurdity of it, that you can be pro child conceived in rape, but not be pro rape.
right,
I'm not promoting rape. I hate rape.
right. Of course.
My
Yeah.
best friends in life are rape victims who became pregnant. My own dear mother was a rape victim. So, and so I struggled when I was younger, and I ultimately found my value, on the cross. Like, that's the infinite price that was paid for my life. So I know today, like, I wasn't worthless, but priceless.
Mm,
And I didn't feel whole, and I was desperate to try to prove my worth to my birth mother, to prove to her that I was worthy of living. And, we're told in scripture that we love because Christ first loved us. And, whether you're a Christian or not, like, I believe in this principle that, when that you can love when you're whole, that you're able to freely love when you are whole. And so I think that you have to know love to be able to show love. And so I know what love is now, and I was able to freely love my birth mother unconditionally
mm.
without,
Even after, the things he has told you.
yeah. And
So,
so 6 years later, she did change her mind about abortion. And now, decades later, we have a beautiful relationship.
yeah.
Um, we see each other and all the time, and she call, I've called her mom always. Out of her three children, I'm the only one she has a relationship with.
Mm,
She hasn't seen the others and talked to them in years, and I'm the one who honors her. We have a wonderful mother-daughter relationship, and she is so thankful that she could not legally abort me, and she comes to hear me speak.
oh, that's so sweet. Yeah. So you were saved by the legality, right? Because she had made her mind, and if she had a way, then I wouldn't be sitting and talking to you.
Right. And then people will say, oh, well, isn't it about choice? That was her choice to have
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
No, her choice was abortion. The law protected me.
Yeah. So what do you have to say about, because there is a lot of debates on abortion on the choice for a mother, when they find that there are clinical issues with the child. And I think that is, again, a very, very gray area. But, because I know you are so much into this, I just wanted to know your thoughts on that scenario.
Yeah, because my organization, Save the One,
Yeah.
it's a global organization. We have our stories translated into many different languages. And we have a Spanish division that's very large. We actually have a book in Spanish. And so we have this network, as I said, globally of people conceived in rape and mothers from rape, and women who regret aborting after rape. So there's some of my best friends in life, women who aborted, and
Mm.
they're precious to me, but they regret their abortions. And we oh, what was I gonna say?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we also specialize in defending the other so-called difficult cases in the
Yeah.
abortion debate. So the challenging prenatal diagnosis. And I think that it's the doctors who have the clinical issues, okay?
Mm.
Um, they're the ones with the fatal heart defects, okay? They have heart defects that are deadly because other people are dying because there's something wrong with their heart, okay, the doctor's hearts, because they have a eugenics mentality. They look at certain lives and say that they're not as worthy of others, that that's a life not worth living. They'll label children as incompatible with life when they have a beating heart, okay?
Mm.
And as long as you have a beating heart, you're compatible with life, okay? You're not incompatible with life until your brain waves are gone. You know, even when your heartbeat has stopped, you can be compatible with life and you can be resuscitated. So I think it's the doctor's philosophies that are incompatible with life,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes our culture, sadly,
Yeah.
is incompatible with life. Uh, so I believe that every life has value. There's
Mm.
meaning. I had a baby girl who died in my arms at 33 days old. And she was absolutely precious, baby Cassie. And so it's very important to me to defend every life. And a lot of times these are disabled children in the womb, and they're attacking disabled children. That's really what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. So, as part of the work, what you do in your organization, can you share, some of the stories? I know that you have the network. Like how do people reach to you and their success story? Because like you said, like there are cases where people have had abortion and they are filled with remorse, regret, right? And that is one case. The other case is wherein, people have been raped and they are faced with the situation like, what do I do, right? So can you share a little bit about the support system you offer and your
Sure,
team offers?
sure. Well, for starters, just having other people around makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
It was 10 years before I met someone else who was conceived in rape. And he actually had me come and speak at his church. He was a youth pastor. And he introduced me. He said, "This is my sister, different rapist, same father in heaven." And then we laughed.
Mm.
And it was so healing to be able to laugh like that and to not feel alone and to be able to have something so tragic and laugh now. Um, I feel a special kinship to others where, no one else can relate to these experiences unless you've really gone through it. And so this is like our tribe. We have a global tribe. And I feel extremely close to people who live in South Africa and the
Mm.
Netherlands and India and Australia. These are some of my dearest friends in life. I learned Spanish just to be able to travel and speak through Latin America and in Spain. And when we started our Spanish division of Save the One, um, some of the translators, there have been a few that have been translating our stories for uh, more than a decade. They said, well, Americans are different. Culturally, they're different. You all are used to sharing. In other cultures, people don't share.
Mm.
And they don't have the courage to do that because it's different. You're different. And
Yeah.
I tell them, no, I don't believe that because when I started out, nobody was sharing.
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody else who was speaking out and saying they were conceived in rape. And I was alone. I didn't have a role model. I didn't have somebody I could go and look at their stories and connect. Okay, there were like stories of adoption and things like that, but there was nothing like this.
Yeah.
And it was once I began sharing my story, other people started coming forward. Then they had the courage to share their stories. We got those stories published. And then more people came forward and more and more and more. And that's what happened in Latin America. They started translating our stories into Spanish. And then, just like I told them what happened, women throughout Latin America started coming forward saying, "This is my story." And
Yeah.
then they had the courage to write out their story and to get it published. So we have a book that came out a year ago in Spanish with a Mexican publisher, 70 stories. Half of the stories are women from Latin America. And so this is true wherever you live. You can see on my website, RebeccaKiessling.com, my story is translated into many, many, many different languages. But we don't have like a team of translators for all these different languages. We have a Portuguese team and we have a Spanish team, but it's not like we have a whole bunch of people that are willing to translate like dozens of
Hmm.
stories. I mean, we have 250 on our blog. But I will tell you that if you're interested in making a difference
Yeah.
and giving others the courage, let me know and you can translate these stories. And I guarantee you, women who speak your language, where that's their native tongue, will come forward and
Yeah.
say, "This is my story."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
nobody should have to feel alone in this.
That's absolutely so inspiring. I'm getting like goosebumps as you're talking. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like you said, right? Even in our community, people don't talk, and that's one of my mission, right? In finding the voices. Let's come together and
Yeah.
talk about the things nobody is talking about, right? Because
Yeah,
there are people.
I love when I saw that title, Finding the Voices.
Ah, thank
That's
you.
us. It is. It,
Yeah, yeah. Because I know that there are people out there
yeah.
that are suffering, and the story what you're saying, there are other women, right?
You know, there were a couple of women, a few women over the years who were really struggling with learning how they were conceived. Actually, there's a woman who called me because it was Father's Day here in the United States, and I know other parts of the world, on Sunday. And this woman who will be 59 years old next month. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
sorry, she's 49. She'll be 50 years old next month. On Father's Day, she talked to her father, and after almost 50 years, her parents are separating. Okay, so
Mm.
she was talking to her dad about like, are you pursuing mom? Are you trying? And he said, well, we had a really rough start. And she said, well, I know that uh, you had been engaged to someone else and he's like, there's more to it than that. And she said, well, I know mom was pregnant with me when you got married. And he said,
Mm.
yeah, there's more to it than that. And he said, look, your mother was raped,
Mm.
by another man. And so he stepped up to be there for her.
Mm.
Uh, and she was devastated at 49 years old, almost 50 years old, to learn that the man who raised her was not her father. And that
Mm.
and that even worse, she was conceived in rape. And so she Googled, conceived in rape, and she found me right away
Mm.
and messaged me. And then we spoke for a couple of hours. Um, so people need that, but there were a couple of women who I met, one from Germany and one from Australia, who were really, really struggling, and they felt suicidal. They
Oh,
really,
yeah.
really felt worthless, knowing that they were conceived in rape, and they were calling themselves all kinds of horrible names. You
Mm.
know, um, the names that you hear other people that I said,
Right.
call me. They were saying that about themselves. And I was trying to tell them that they matter and, things like that. But finally, I said to them, it just dawned on me. I said to one of them, and it worked with the other one. I asked, is that how you see me?
Yeah.
And right away, each one of them said, oh, gosh, no, no, you're wonderful. I think so. No, I think so highly of you. No, I would never say that about you. And I said, well, you're saying those things about yourself because you were conceived and raped. So you do realize that essentially you're saying those things about me too.
Yeah.
And it was that realization that the lights went on,
Yeah.
that they began to understand their own worth and they stopped saying those things. And they
Right.
said that changed their whole perspective. So when you can see the value of someone else with a similar story, whatever your story is, whatever difficulty you've been through in life and you feel worthless, when you connect with other people who have a similar story and you can see their worth, that will help you to heal and to see your own worth.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Yeah. So now you spoke about, the community, right? So the sense, the power of the community in connecting with people who have gone through similar story.
Yeah.
Because right now, when they are at the bottom, which you were maybe 18 when you were 18 years old, and now look at you, right? Like you transform and, you're leading all these voices, having a big network, changing lives. People were not talking about all this, but you are not only creating the awareness in the United States but in all the other countries too. So if I know, for our listeners, whoever are listening, and if they are in that space where they are alone, what would your advice be? What would be
Well,
your, yeah.
so I mean, obviously, if you have a difficult case story that has to do with the mission of Save the One, if you were conceived in rape or incest or sex trafficking, if you became pregnant by rape, incest, or sex trafficking, or if you were told by doctors to abort or your parents were told to abort, if you have a serious genetic disorder where, most of these children are killed, please connect with us. But if you have some other different type of life story that has nothing to do with this issue, I really encourage you to find groups, find your tribe of other people with similar stories. There's strength in numbers. And whether it's for support or it's for activism,
Yeah.
there's strength in numbers. And you'll find your voice with other people. I hate being alone in this. I'm so happy to feel like I have, not just a family, but an army when the time comes. When there's the need for activism, I'm glad that I'm not alone in it and that I can talk to others. I'm glad when I was struggling this year on Father's Day, I found my biological father through Ancestry DNA. I know who he is.
Mm,
And I have a great relationship with my half brother, but I've never met my biological father. I don't want to meet him. He's a violent man. He's still dangerous. He never spent a day in jail. He
mm,
beat his wife. My brother tells me you don't want to meet him. So probably the only time I'll ever see him is at his funeral. I'll look down at his casket. And that's hard because I would love to have the opportunity to say my piece,
mm.
and it's not a matter of like bitterness or, you know, anything like that or vengeance. It's just, I want my voice to be heard, right? So I'm probably never going to have the opportunity to say that to him. And he has Alzheimer's now too.
Mm,
So it's hard. It's hard. Like Father's Day was really hard for me. But I was able to post on Facebook. Out of my 5,000 Facebook friends, 1,000 of them have these stories and they all commented. We
mm,
also have private support groups on Facebook with hundreds in these groups. So we have a separate group for the mothers who are raising their children who are conceived in rape. We have a separate group for women who regret aborting after rape. We have a separate group for men conceived in rape, for women conceived in rape. We have a separate group for people who were told by doctors to abort. And
Hmm.
then we have geographical groups and regional groups. So we have Save the One Africa, we have Save the One Europe, we have Save the One Canada, and then we have Save the One Michigan and New York and California and Georgia and Florida, so that people can get together and maybe even meet in person. And I've been able, traveling the world, been able to meet people all over the world who have these stories, and it's really special.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. And I love that you have different, very specific group because that would really enhance the connection power.
And you know what? If you have a story where you can't find a group and it doesn't exist, start
Create
it.
one. Yeah, absolutely. I'm really loving this concept of, a safe space, a community. You get together, it can be one person, but there is a lot of power, even if there are two people in that group to support each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me, like, I know that you and your and the group what you have created are focused more on, okay, after a child is conceived, abortion. So I want to go back little further ahead in the cycle, specifically for our teenage viewer, um, because I know that in my community and people who are listening, young people who get into sexual relationship, they conceive, and then they are, because they don't want to bear the brunt of the society or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, they opt for abortion. And I
Yeah.
want you to speak a little bit on, because I'm targeting young people. I don't want them to ever be in a position to face that choice.
Yeah. And, I receive Google alerts every day for anything that has to do with product of rape, conceived in rape, accepting cases of rape, rape exception, pregnant by rape. And I actually get a ton of Google alerts out of India. And I know you
Mm,
mentioned you're from Northern India. And I know, I mean, just like the United States and so much of the world, there's a problem with what we call rape culture, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's a serious issue. And the Google alerts I get regularly are these court cases for late term abortion, because in India, abortion is illegal after 22 weeks. And that's really far along. That's more than halfway through a pregnancy. Children survive at 22 weeks. There's children who have survived at 21 weeks. But the courts in India keep granting permission for abortion in cases of rape. And it's become a big issue there in the courts.
Mm,
And there's a push to be able to just totally change the law, but the courts are doing it where they're granting all these late term abortions in cases of rape. And then when there's a judge who denies it, then they appeal it and the Court of Appeals allows it. Um, and we've seen this happen in Argentina and around the world. I get these Google alerts. So it's not just India, but there's been a lot of cases out of India. Um, Oftentimes, they're underage.
yeah.
It has to do with it's clearly rape because the girl is underage, right? So I just want to comment on that aspect of it. First of all, the younger a girl is, so it may be some of you who are listening, your peers, this could happen to them. The younger a girl is, the more likely it is that it's someone in her household
Mm,
or her family who's been raping her. And the more likely it is that it's been going on for years.
yeah.
And it's the baby who has now revealed the rape. So,
Mm,
in many respects, this baby is the hero of the story. It's the baby who has the opportunity to protect her, to prove the rape, to find who the perpetrator is through DNA, and to get justice for the mother. Even when they abort, it's the baby who brings justice. The baby is the proof, but it's sad that the baby got the death penalty for his crime. Also, the younger that a girl is, the more likely it is that she's very far along in her pregnancy. And
Mm.
that's why we see these cases that are after 22 weeks. And you could wait a few more weeks and deliver the baby, which is safer for the mother, and deliver a live baby. You can do a C-section. She doesn't even have to go through labor in that respect. But when you have a late term abortion, it's a very dangerous procedure. Oftentimes, they rip the baby's limbs apart,
Mhm.
rip the baby apart
Yes,
from the limb. And so they have shards of bone that are sharp that easily perforate the uterus. It's a 3-day procedure to do any late term abortion. They have to put laminaries in to dilate the cervix, and it takes 3 days. So it's not like she's going to be spared having to go through labor. The labor that she has to endure is far worse than a normal labor. And it's not like she's not going to know what happened. I mean, she's going to have to deliver a dead baby, whether they
right.
stop the baby's heart first or whether they rip the baby apart. She's still delivering a baby, just a dead baby. And I think it's absolutely absurd to suggest that more violence in her body where she's already been traumatized is somehow going to bring her healing. It does not. It doesn't even make sense. It does not bring her healing. And it's barbaric in a civilized society to punish an innocent child for someone else's crime. You ask most people, should the rapist, should the child molester, the sex trafficker get the death penalty? And most people would say no. And in fact, the courts have said no. There's no death penalty for rapists. In the United States, they said even child molesters don't deserve the death penalty. But you're going to give the death penalty to the innocent child? And
Yeah.
oftentimes, the girl's own mother has been leaving her unprotected or sometimes even trafficking her own
Hmm.
daughter. And her mother is the one. Either the rapist takes her to the abortion clinic to destroy the evidence because rapists, sex traffickers, and child molesters love abortion. It protects them, and
Mm.
abortion enables them to continue perpetrating. But also, oftentimes, it's her own mother because she's protecting her boyfriend or her husband or her grandfather or her brother, um, or because she's protecting her reputation because she doesn't want people to know or to think that she was a bad mom, that she failed to protect her daughter. And just so that she doesn't get chastised, she'll take her daughter for the abortion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can totally relate to all those scenario what you're saying. There are a lot of joint family, right, from where our viewers are, and we have heard of many cases within the house, or there may be a mate in the house who have been sexually harassed by somebody in that house, and to not to have the evidence, abortion is one of the option,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
many times what I have seen is the young people who got pregnant, they don't even know what is the process of abortion. So when you spoke about, in graphic detail, people say that, oh, why do you want to share the details, the pictures, the video? I think everybody needs to see that.
Yeah. But, I understand that people want to care about women. They want to show concern for pregnant women and especially for pregnant rape victims. I hope people would care about them. But that's why I share it because you need to know that if you really care about them, you would want to protect them from the rapist and from the abortion
Yeah.
because the abortion is more violence perpetrated on her and it could render her infertile, leave her infertile for the rest of her life. I know so many women who the only baby they ever had was the baby they aborted. And then, the violence is not going to bring her healing. Rape victims are 4 times more likely to die within the next year. They have a higher murder rate because it helps perpetuate an abusive relationship, a higher rate of suicide, drug overdose, and on and on. It's not compassionate for the girl. We know when a girl gives birth, not only does the rape typically end for her, but also for all the other young girls in the household who are being raped. The baby delivers her. When she delivers that baby, the baby delivers her out of the abusive home and protects her.
That's a very, very different perspective, which I think is new for our listeners, new for me, because the way you're saying is, the child, even though it may be out of rape or whatever cases you had, is going to protect the mother.
Yeah, and bring her healing.
Yeah. So
Um,
tell
um,
me
one,
one.
one, one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a little discussion on rape. When a woman is raped, it's very common for women to express that they feel a sense of darkness,
Yeah,
that darkness has overcome them, and that they feel a death. And that oftentimes women will say that they feel like they have a dead body,
yeah,
that their body is completely dead inside. And they don't engage in self-care, whether it's grooming or looking after themselves, making good choices. Maybe they're just staying home, not going anywhere, or maybe they're going to bars and just, you know, acting like this was no big deal because they can't handle it. It's very common for rape victims to vow never to tell another soul what happened to them.
yeah,
And what so many women in our organization say is that when they became pregnant, they realized, despite what society was telling them, they realized that amid this darkness within them, there was now a light. And the child was that light. And that they marveled at the fact that this dead body was now miraculously sustaining and growing life inside of them. And that when they failed to care about taking care of themselves, the baby gave them a reason to begin making good choices and engaging in self-care, because it was no longer just them, it was now their baby who needed to be taken care of. And they, where they felt alone for so long, having the baby inside of them made them realize, I'm not alone, I'm no longer alone, and gave them a reason to live, gave them hope and a reason to live.
yeah. So I think you're coming from a space of healing and light, but for somebody who is in a dark space, right? And who hasn't come up to that level and who has not, who's not strong enough and who feels that, okay, I'll have the baby, I'll not have abortion, I'll have the baby. But looking at the baby reminds me of that trauma. Do you want to share any comments for those
Sure.
situation? And I think like many people are in that situation, right? So they don't have the support, and seeing the child reminds them of what happened to them, and so like that kind of brings them down.
I will tell you, first of all, that it's extremely uncommon, but I will acknowledge that does happen. Okay.
Mm,
But for most, the child is a reminder, but
yeah,
the child is a reminder that good can overcome evil. Okay. So the child is not a negative reminder for most of them, but there are some for whom the child is a reminder. And a lot of that has to do with, um, culturally and with their family's attitudes towards
yeah,
that child,
yeah,
and the things that people said to them
yep,
about their child, that your child is going to be this, your child's going to be that, your child, and so they heard a lot of negative things. Albert Einstein once said that for every negative comment, it takes 3 positives to overcome it. But for me, sometimes I feel like it takes 3,000, because, it's easy to just chew and chew on those negative comments. Um, And so it's very important for those of us who are listening to be the positive, to
Yeah.
encourage them that you are stronger than you think. I believe in you. You're a good woman. You're a good mother. You are capable of great love. I believe in you. I know you. I know who you are. You're a loving person, and tell them that this child can be pregnant, that the child represents hope, that the child is the rainbow after the storm. um, I think Mother Teresa once said, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like, a child is proof that of God's intent that the world continue.
Yeah.
And, she needs to be reminded that this child, is proof to you that life should continue. I think just having people plant those seeds and giving her a more hopeful perspective is so important, and to encourage her that she's capable. But then also, you always have to listen and find out what are her immediate needs. What does she really need besides love and hope? What are the tangible things that she needs? And then see how you can help provide those things to her. Sometimes women go to abortion clinics and they just say, I can't make my car payment this month, or I can't pay my rent this month. And there are groups of people who will come together and make sure that those needs are met. In the United States, we have pregnancy resource centers that
Mm.
can provide help to women. We have maternity homes where she can go live. Um, and they're available internationally. There's CareNet International, there's Heartbeat International. And if there's not a pregnancy center in your area, start one.
Beautiful.
One
Yeah.
more
So
thing,
I think, yeah, go ahead.
one
Sorry.
more thing about India, and I don't know if you ever covered this topic, but it's the issue of females being aborted. And
Yes.
there's some communities where for every 100 females born, there's 176 males. There's just this huge gender disparity.
Yes.
And I'm so concerned to the young women who are out there listening that we are losing our voices globally. We're seeing this trend in the United States. It's not just India and China now, but we're seeing it in the United States. And we as women are losing our voices. And this has led to more sex trafficking, more rapes, because there's not enough women to go around. And we have to speak up. We have to change this before we have no voice any longer.
That's beautiful. Like, bringing up that statistics, right? Yeah, it is true. It is true in India. Sadly, a lot of people, even in this age and day, they prefer a male child. There is celebration when a male child is born. For a woman, for a baby girl, not so much.
And I know
But
in India, they made it illegal to tell the gender of the child
yes,
during the ultrasound, but it's still happening.
yes.
And we have to speak up against abortion.
Thank you. Thank you for, specifically mentioning about some of the knowledge what you have for India. That is, yeah, that is awesome. I think so. The biggest takeaway is for whoever who are listening, what we spoke is going to help you in your future because having more knowledge, right? And also, I think everybody should look up and learn about abortion procedure because that was an eye opener for me when I was in my 9th grade, going to 10th grade when we had that camp. I was young, I didn't know anything, and we were like, oh, woman activists, right? Like,
Yeah,
why should why should the woman have to bear that? And we all spoke, and Brother Francis listened very patiently, and it's like, okay. And then he put that clipping,
yeah.
and we were
I'm
all
still
quiet.
I'm a woman activist. I'm pro-woman,
Yeah,
still.
yeah, yeah. And I think that image can change your mind, and which is why I really encourage, everybody to look up. Uh, more knowledge is good. It helps you make the right decision. But when you are in this situation, there are a lot of groups And now the internet is such a blessing that, even if somebody is not there in the place where you are, you can connect
Yeah.
to other group.
I really encourage your viewers to watch the film It's a Girl. It's called It's a Girl, the three most dangerous words spoken in the world today.
It's a girl.
Yeah, watch that movie. It will transform your whole view. And from a female perspective, this is the women's rights issue of our day.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, this has been so good. I know we are at time, but before we go, I do want to pull up your website so that people can look you up and read about all. There are so much of resources over here, experience, writing, videos. I really, found it very, very useful, and I would encourage everybody to check it out.
And SaveTheOne.com. That's my organization, SaveTheOne.com.
SaveTheOne.com. Okay,
And
all right. Is there any other last message which you would like to give to our viewer?
I just really appreciate this opportunity. I love the conversation. I love your platform and what you're doing. And I'm grateful to have had this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for what you do, for bringing light, from one person. And I saw all the pictures, how you have like formed the community. It's awesome. And for our listeners, thank you so much. I see comments from Salam Chaubal Wang, very interesting and fascinating, good and knowledgeable. And Azilu says, very impressive. And I know that a lot of people will be watching the replay because of the time zone. But whoever is watching, do think about this topic. This is important. We have to talk about topics like this and make it more aware.
And
Thank
just,
you.
be a person who affirms others' worth. There's people who need to hear it. I tell
Yeah,
people, happy birthday. I'm so glad you were born. And there are people who have said to me, thank you. Nobody's ever said that to me before. There's
yeah.
people who need to hear, I'm so glad you were born.
Yeah, I'm so glad you were born, Rebecca. Really, it's such
Me
a
too.
pleasure. Look at you. I love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.